Time now for Trivia Tracks with yours truly, Price Robertson. Sponsored by Beth Smith and Edward Jones and ProMed Ambulance Services. A pioneer in confrontational public affairs talk shows, Crossfire was one of CNN's hottest programs. The show was hosted by two pundits, one representing the left, the other representing the right. The concept began in 1978 when Tom Braden, a former CIA operative and author of the book 8 is Enough that spawned the TV series, and Pat Buchanan, a former Nixon speechwriter, co-hosted a confrontation for then NBC-owned WRC Radio in Washington. The program was highly praised, but its ratings were low, and the plug was soon pulled. Ree Schoenfeld, then the head of CNN, which debuted in 1980, was searching for a replacement for his 10 p.m. program. The idea was to put the day's most important newsmaker in the spotlight, caught between a conservative and a liberal talking head. Their ratings, which were low by radio standards, were better than CNN's. Once Schoenfeld signed the pair, network owner Ted Turner objected, but Braden and Buchanan threatened a lawsuit. Turner backed down and agreed to give them a half hour at 11:30 p.m. With Ed Turner, no relation, as midwife, Crossfire debuted on June 25, 1982. The topic on the first show was Alexander Haig's resignation as Ronald Reagan's Secretary of State. Its first guest, former Reagan advisor Richard Allen, via telephone. Within minutes, Braden and Buchanan lost Allen. Not only that, the Scotch tape on Buchanan's earpiece popped off while he was reading the introduction. The program's first in-studio guest that night was Senator Charles Mathias of Maryland. Crossfire usually featured two additional left and right guests on each topic of discussion. On some occasions, only one guest was featured. Occasionally, when the co-hosts agreed on the featured topic, two guests of the opposing view would appear. More rarely, when hosts disagreed with the prevailing view of their side, they would debate someone from their own camp who agreed with it. By the time 1983 began, Crossfire had become very popular, moving to the 7:30 p.m. slot in the process. In early 1985, Pat Buchanan left to become communications director in the Reagan White House. However, he was not officially replaced. Pundits such as Robert Novak, then one half of Evans and Novak on the same network, would fill in. Buchanan finally left his job at the White House in the spring of 1987 and returned to Crossfire later that November. In 1989, Tom Braden left Crossfire after 7 years. His replacement was Michael Kinsley, then the editor of the New Republic and a columnist for Time magazine, who often filled in for Braden during the latter half of the latter's tenure. In November 1991, Buchanan took some time off to launch the first of 3 unsuccessful runs for president. John Sununu, who had just left his job as White House Chief of Staff, assumed the Buchanan chair in March of 1992, alternating with the latter starting in February 1993. In 1995, following Buchanan's decision to make his second run for president, Robert Novak returned, alternating with Sununu. At about the same time, CNN began a weekend edition of the show, Crossfire Sunday. The first weekend version of the program, Crossfire Saturday, ran during the 1980s and was replaced by the Capitol Gang in the fall of 1988. The initial hosts for the Sunday version were Bob Beckel on the left and Tony Snow on the right. After a few months, Snow left to join Fox News, which began its news channel in the fall of 1996 and was replaced by Lynn Cheney. At the end of 1995, Mike Kinsley left Crossfire to launch the online magazine Slate. In his place were Bill Press, who alternated with former vice presidential candidate Geraldine Ferraro before becoming the full-time representative of the left of 1998. In March 1997, Pat Buchanan returned to Crossfire for a third time. Then, a little over a year later, John Sununu left, with Bob Novak returning to alternate with Buchanan. At the same time, CNN pulled the plug on Crossfire Sunday. In 1999, Pat Buchanan left the program for the last time. Replacing him was Mary Madeline, who left to take a job with the Bush 43 White House in 2001. Tucker Carlson was brought in as Madeline's replacement. By this time, the show began to lose its audience, with the increasing popularity of alternatives like Hannity and Colmes on Fox News Channel and Hardball on MSNBC. In 2002, Bill Press left the program. Its length increased to an hour. Production moved to George Washington University, and a live studio audience was added to the mix. Novak and Carlson retained their slots as alternating hosts on the right, while Paul Begala and James Carville became the new alternating hosts on the left. Over time, the show was cut back to a half hour, and Jon Stewart's infamous appearance on the show in October 2004 signaled its end, which came in June 2005. In 2013, CNN resurrected Crossfire with a new cast, but this revised version failed to catch on and was gone after only a year. Till next time, I'm Price Robertson. Amazed by today's trivia? Then join me for Trivia Tracks weekdays at 6:45 on Everybody's Country Y95.